and we are live with you here today. Welcome for all of those of you who are joining us right now. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of background information before we get started here with Dr. Mitra. So we're super excited to have her as our guest speaker this evening. Dr. Mitra is going to be speaking about the gut-brain connection. I'm sure you guys have all checked that out. We're going to learn a lot in our session today. So, didn't you know that the Palo Alto speaker series was going to be full of all sorts of good bits of information that you can take and apply in your life? Maybe you didn't anticipate that one, but here you go. Coming up next month, you're all here to hear Dr. Mitra this evening, and next month on the first Thursday of the month, as all of our speakers are, which is March 4th, you will be able to hear Dr. Cindy Scholes. And Dr. Scholes is speaking about emotional agility and 3 skills for finding choices. If you looked at all at the description of her talk, she talks about hitting that glass ceiling. And I think we've all had this experience where life gets good. And then we kind of wonder, could it really stay this good? And we bounce off that glass ceiling, which is a certain amount of happiness or abundance or success in life. And we kind of bounce off and we go back down to a level that we're more comfortable and familiar with. So Dr. Scholes is going to talk about how you bust through that. So that's going to be a great talk. The following month in April, we have Linda Shively, who's going to be here, How to Tame the Joy-Stealing Dragons. I know Linda personally. She's a fantastic speaker. I think you're going to learn a lot listening to her. And I will say one of the beauties of all of our speakers, and I know this to be true for Linda, is her life experience reflects what she's talking about. And you'll hear that in all of the speakers, which is they're not talking about something from an academic standpoint or something from a third person remote standpoint, but their life reflects what they're sharing. The next month after that, in May, we are going to have Dr. Brenda Wade. She is, we have another medical doctor here, and she's been on all sorts of TV, Oprah, CNN, all that kind of stuff. And she's talking about the sacred in relationship, which I'm really looking forward to. So without further ado now, I do want to introduce Dr. Mitra Ray. With over 30 years of experience, she has helped people achieve remarkable success in looking and feeling better. Dr. Ray received a Bachelor's of Science at Cornell University and her PhD from Stanford Medical School. She's the recipient of many NIH grants and the Young Investigator Award from the Federation of American Societies in Experimental Biology. Her research has been published in prestigious journals such as Science, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and the Journal of Cell Biology. Audiences in 4 different continents have enjoyed her award-winning books, audios, and lectures on health, beauty, brain function, and longevity. Her mission and commitment is to educate and inspire people about how plant-based whole foods create simple, sustainable beauty, mental clarity, and vitality. I'm very happy to introduce to you today, Dr. Mitra Ray.
Thank you so much, Rusty. That was quite the introduction, and I'm going to start by sharing my slides. Let me know if that's all working out okay there.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. All right. Well, what a great introduction, and I'm so pleased to be here. I also want to shout out to all the other speakers. That sounds like a wonderful series. And tonight I'll be discussing nutrition, especially as it relates to the brain and the gut, but I'm also a big proponent of reducing ongoing stress. So I'm excited about this series and also managing your mindset. If I had more time, I would actually discuss both mindset and nutrition. But my good friend and colleague, Dr. Cindy Scholes, as you said, is speaking next month. And I definitely want to give her a big plug because she's going to just blow your mind with the information she has. So let's see. Okay, here we go. So what are your concerns? Okay, I figure we have both younger and older folks on this virtual audience tonight. So I just want to speak to your concerns. And I know back when I was young, I just wanted to look good, feel good. And eventually I got to the point where I wanted to have healthy babies. And then as we get older, we certainly don't want to become depressed. We don't want to get dementia. We don't want to suddenly, have a heart attack. We don't care for diabetes. We don't want to die of cancer. And we don't want to gain weight every year. So let me just start by introducing my family. I'm here with this in the selfie with my husband, Doug, and our 3 daughters, Leela, Nira, and Lily. Doug and I have raised them to not just be mindful of what they eat, but hopefully to also learn about cultures and respect people the world over. I was raised that way myself. My parents moved to the United States when I was just 7 years old. And my father, though he was an engineer by trade, he was very interested in philosophy and comparative religion. And he certainly had a huge influence on me. In India, there's ancient texts known as the Vedas that describe our life in phases, honoring the changes that occur as we evolve through the ages. Well, I don't know if anyone's going to be rewriting the Vedas anytime soon to meet up with modern times, but certainly science is rewriting biology. Since about 2007, we have a new biology emerging that is rethinking the theories and the concepts that we thought were so tried and true, even those proposed by famous Nobel laureates. This new biology is absolutely going to change the face of medicine. It already is, actually. And we all need to quickly rethink how we live in our modern world in order to stay healthy through all these various phases of life. In 2012, we started to see the first big splash of articles explaining how the human body is actually a host body, and that there are microorganisms that live inside us that are orchestrating our lives much more than we are. And this startling discovery is changing the entire landscape of biology. I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite pictures. I'd love to see some guesses in the chat what you think this picture is. And I'll tell you in a second. Let's see if we can get the chat going a little bit on that. So what this is an electron micrograph of your gut mucosa. And if you look really closely, there's like little bacteria in there. You can see them eating and having sex and all. They're just having a good old time in there. So let's take a minute to understand that we are not so much humans as we are superorganisms, and the world within us is populated by bacteria and other microorganisms. Although people interchange these words all the time, including myself, technically speaking, the word microbiota refers to all the microorganisms such as bacteria, protozoa, and fungi, while the word microbiome refers to the genetic material of all those microorganisms. We also have the virome, which is representing the RNA of viruses. Now, we can get a sampling from your microbiome from your feces or swabbing your skin or mouth, and we can start to sequence that DNA. In fact, that's how we know that all these creatures are inside us. We can't culture all of them, but we see them through genetic sequencing. And it is the presence of their DNA that lets us know just how diverse your microbiota is. And diversity is key. So this new medicine today, in my mind, needs to be focused on the diversity of the microbiota within us. Medicine has to change because at the cellular level, there are at least 10 times more microbial cells within us than human cells. And from a genetics perspective, less than 1% of the DNA within you belongs to you. The majority of the genetic material within your physical being comes from your microbiome. So imagine going to the doctor where they have you fill out those forms about your family history. You know what I put on those? I put NA, not applicable, because I've been saying for a decade now that you're not so much a human, but rather the mothership with a lot of passengers on board. And we have to be careful about who we feed through our diet, which I'll be discussing here tonight. So it's not about your DNA. The good news is that you don't have to be a victim of your genetics. You can put down NA next time you have to fill out one of those applications. Whether it's diabetes or heart disease or Alzheimer's, whatever you fear runs in your family, fear not, as the only thing that really runs in your family probably is the modern lifestyle. Not only is there diversity between your microbiome and mine, but there's also diversity in the distribution of different species of bacteria in different areas of the body. And as we age, like the Vedas talk about, we do change over time. Our microbiota also changes over time, especially because of what we eat and other lifestyle factors. So if there's one thing I want to convey to you tonight is that I want you to really get what's happening in your gut. Picture this. You have about 20 feet of intestinal tubing, over 20 feet actually. And down the very center of this tubing is a ton of mucus in which bacteria live. It's warm, it's cozy in there. There's this constant supply of food. And so your intestines have much more microbial diversity than anywhere else on the planet, because it's the place to hang out if you're a bacteria. So this is a picture of a healthy gut cross section. The light blue represents the very center of the intestinal tube and is called the outer mucosal layer because it's the farthest away from our own body tissue. Then there's the inner mucosal layer, which shouldn't have any organisms in it, ideally. The body works very hard to keep the microorganisms in their space and not invade our space. We want all the benefits, meaning we want the bacteria to digest our food for us and make all these important nutrients that we can't get from the food we're eating. That's right. What the metabolites of these bacteria are is actually our food, but we don't want them to touch us. And we don't want our immune system getting all fired up because they're touching us. Okay. So this is why we want them, sort of a mucosal layer away. Now, the whole point of your small intestine is to absorb nutrients, absorb nutrients, absorb nutrients. That's why the surface area is maximized with this undulation. And those purple enteric cells, they're not really purple, it's an artist description, but these cells also have finger-like projections called villi to maximize, again, that surface area for the absorption of nutrients. So again, there should be no space between those enteric cells. We have to have very tight junctions because we don't want undigested food to get in between one cell or another. We want completely digested food. So we want our proteins to be broken down into individual amino acids. So proteins are like, think of them as a string of pearls of amino acids. We want them all broken up. If they're like chunks of amino acids that are like little peptides, your body can, if they get absorbed, your body might think it's a virus or something and start an unnecessary war. So we want complete digestion to happen, and we want to absorb these completely digested nutrients. Now, you can see at the bottom, there's some immune cells hanging out, just kind of surveying the lay of the land, making sure everything's peaceful and all is going well. But every time you eat, you can't help but introduce foreign bacteria and other microorganisms. So what we want to do is be very careful about the kind of microorganisms we're bringing in based on the food we're eating, because if we eat the right foods, we can handle the microorganisms, for instance, that come with fruits and vegetables, even if there's a little bit of mold. But what we can't handle is the microorganisms that come along with flesh, basically, and animal products as much. And that is a much bigger challenge for us, even when it's cooked. So we're going to talk about what happens when we start to eat processed foods and too many animal products. Uh-oh, what's going on here? Eating the wrong foods lowers this microbial diversity as toxin-producing pathogens take advantage of how comfy and cozy your intestinal mucus is. They degrade the protective inner mucus layer. Then that stimulates your immune system and the gut-associated lymphatic tissue. So there's lymphatic tissue. You've got your lymphatic tissue, lymphatic system throughout your body, but it's especially concentrated in the gut. And you start to go to war in your intestines. Now your immune system is so busy dealing with the war in your gut that it cannot be vigilant about other challenges such as viruses that are constantly entering the body because they're just everywhere. They're in the air we breathe. And you get inflammation in the gut, which becomes systemic and spreads to the body and causes issues over time, such as irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. And this is a picture of inflammatory bowel disease, which shows what happens over time due to an overstimulated immune system being challenged by these changes in your microbiome. On the left is a cross-section of a healthy colon. And on the right, you have an inflamed gut, and the genetic fingerprint in the middle you see is quite different between the left and the right. To a lesser or greater extent, most people have a version of this kind of dysbiosis, is what this is called, when you have that inflamed intestinal tract. Hippocrates said back in 460 BC, all diseases begin in the gut. It's still true today, folks, and it is because the immune system goes to war with your gut microbiome and disease processes start to take hold of the body. This is war. And then your immune system is trying to deal with all these different populations of gut bacteria changes. And then gaining weight turns out to also be a result of this dysbiosis. It's not just about, some people say, oh, I exercise, I try to eat right, but I can't seem to, get this weight off. And it's because we have to focus on the foods that don't cause dysbiosis. Now, you can rebalance things. Now, let me kind of bring this into the gut-brain connection. So dysbiosis, as we talked about, means that the ratio and the diversity of the bacteria in your gut is not ideal anymore. And the term psychobiome refers to how that microbiome in your gut affects your daily mood, your disposition, as well as risk factors for long-term brain health. For instance, we've seen a correlation that many people with irritable bowel syndrome are also depressed. People on the autism spectrum tend to have constipation, along with Parkinson's patients. And then antiviral and antifungal medications also lead to depression. And depressed people, we know, are missing at least 2 species of important bacteria in their gut. So we're starting to lose diversity, and that's one of the challenges we face in our modern world. Some bacteria actually secrete messenger molecules that travel through the blood to the brain. And then other bacteria may stimulate the vagus nerve, which runs from the base of the brain to organs of the abdomen. And we recently discovered these neuropod cells that also are part of the gut lining. Each of these neuropod cells has a long foot that extends outward to form a synaptic connection with nearby nerve cells, including the vagus nerve. So we think this may be the major link to how the bacteria control our brain. Now, this is really interesting. If you give healthy, normal rats or mice fecal transplants from patients with Parkinson's or who are schizophrenic or have autism or depressed, these rats and mice display the rat and mice equivalent of these diseases. Conversely, you can reverse with fecal transplants from healthy people such symptoms. So the bottom line is, well, if we can change the way you poop, we can change your mood. Okay, so mental illness in America is really, actually, this is probably already old data. We know that 1 in 5 adults in America experience mental illness, and I know the pandemic hasn't helped this much. Nearly 1 in 25, which is 10 million adults in America, live with a serious mental illness, and 1/2 of all chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14. Imagine that, and 3/4 by the age of 24. So we also have to teach our kids how to eat right. Now, let's talk about tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid that is the precursor to making serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that makes you feel happy. But there is another pathway. There are many pathways, actually. One of these other pathways can make something called kynureninin. Try kynureninin. Say that 5 times fast, which is a toxin that leads to, get this, dementia. So when you have this other pathway turned on by having the wrong bacteria in your gut, because some bacteria will make serotonin, others will make these toxic byproducts. And so not only are you not happy, you're actually creating, toxicity in your brain, which over time can lead to dementia. So depending on which bacteria live in your gut, you'll either be feeding your happiness pathways or destroying your brain over time. And of course, none of these changes happen in one day. So we don't make the correlation of how much our diet is actually affecting long-term health outcomes. But I think if you pay attention, you can see how it can change your mood on a daily basis. Here's another graphic showing how many different pathways can be activated by different populations of bacteria in the gut for tryptophan. Another thing is to note is the serotonin pathway also makes melatonin, which can help you sleep better at night. So you can be happier and sleep better at night, which will regulate your circadian rhythm, which is also very important for cellular function day to day. Your gut determines your immune health, your ability to absorb nutrients, the GI permeability, which shows up as basically if you have a leaky gut, this will show up as food allergies over time. And it's reversible. That's the good news, as well as GI motility, which is your ability to be regular, which is also critical for good health. And it feeds back to the central nervous system, which affects mood, emotions, your circadian rhythm, sexual behavior, oxidative stress, which is a fancy way of saying how fast you age on a cellular level, as well as cognition. Okay, so people really don't understand this whole concept of protein, although there are if you haven't seen Game Changers on Netflix, highly recommend that movie to you. But I'm going to just talk about some numbers because people talk about where do I get my protein if I just eat plants. Now, I'm not trying to get everyone to just eat plants, but I'm just going to hypothetically say, let's see what happens if we compare 500 calories of plants from tomatoes, spinach, lima beans, peas, and potatoes, and compare it to 500 calories from beef, pork, chicken, and whole milk. Look at the numbers. The protein numbers are about the same. The fat, you see 4 grams of fat in the plant-based foods. By the way, those are omega fats. And in the animal-based foods, you don't have much omega fats other than the omegas that the animals ate from eating plants, but you do have 9 times the fat, which is saturated fat, which clogs your arteries, as well as cholesterol. Now, here on the left, you see all these nutrients. This is actually a very short list. The complete list would be like over 20,000 nutrients that you find in plants. And on the right side, there's a little bit because those animals, they didn't make those nutrients. They ate some plants. So I don't know about you, but I don't need a middleman between me and my nutrients. And actually what you're going to bring in on the right side is parasites and food for parasites as well. Now, I also want to circle the 31 grams of fiber you're going to get in just 500 calories worth of plants. Keep this number in mind because I'm going to later talk about how much your bacteria love fiber. Okay. So this is a really interesting study that was done and published in Nature, which is probably the top, science journal in the world. So they basically did a dietary change of giving people either an animal-based diet, purely animal-based diet, or purely plant-based diet. And what they saw in the animal-based diet is that there was an increase of human enteric disease, which is diseases of the gut, increase in liver cancer, increase in inflammatory bowel disease, and inhibition of the growth members, important growth members of Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes, which are important phyla of bacteria that we need in our gut. So when your body is not fighting a war in your intestines from eating animal products, your immune system is completely available to fight infections from viruses and bacteria. So I'm with this doctor about go more plant-based, do what you can to eat more plants. Now, imagine this, if you get COVID, biodiversity will help. And biodiversity, I will get to this topic a little bit more down the road here. But also this, one of the things that they're realizing is that sooner or later, first of all, if you have more biodiversity, you're going to be able to fight off COVID better. Secondly, if you have good plant omegas in your diet, that will help with the recovery process. A lot of people lose their ability to smell and taste because of a deficiency in omegas. And unfortunately, a lot of people talk about fish omegas, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but omega-3s do keep your microbiota diverse and healthy. However, typically you'll see a picture like this, and I'm pointing this out now, not because I agree with it, because there are two things here I don't agree with. One is the salmon, okay? Because the salmon did not make the omega-3, it ate algae. And so where you're getting the omegas is in the scale of the fish. Like omegas from fish come from, basically they used to throw away the scales and the guts. Now they just squeeze all the oils out of it and put it into a capsule and sell it to you and tell you it's good for you. But there, if you look enough, and I'll share some of the research with you, that stuff is not good for you. I also don't believe in isolated oils. You'll see a lot of people think that olive oil is good for you. Any kind of isolated oils, in my mind, should be used very sparsely, because we don't want isolated macronutrients. We don't want isolated like table sugar, right? We want the sugar that comes in its natural form in the fruit and vegetable. We don't want to isolate it out of the food. We don't want isolated proteins, and we don't want isolated oils or fats. We want the whole food. Now, while everyone's talking about omega-3 from fish, the reality is that we're just destroying our planet and all the fish diversity on the planet by overfishing. And this is also very startling. A study by scientists at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, a very respectable cancer research center here in Seattle, linked eating a lot of oily fish or taking potent fish oils supplements to at least a 43% increased risk in prostate cancer overall, and a 71% increased risk of aggressive prostate cancer. And, it's kind of like just accepted in medicine that if you are a guy and you live long enough, you're going to get prostate cancer. Well, probably because you're listening to all this nonsense about eating a lot of fish, which is people are giving up meat to eat fish. And the reality is fish is a really major source of toxicity, as well as, now we're seeing this kind of research. I believe in plant oils, and I'm going to recommend one to you that is a mixture of pomegranate, sea buckthorn, raspberry seed, tomato seed, algal, and safflower seed oil. Remember, the fish just eat the algae. Why not eat the algae itself for omegas? And I also want to say that it's really important that the fish oil supplements are in these gel caps where they have been heated around the oil, which destroys that. And I really believe in omegas, but I really believe in having the right kind of omegas. So I want to suggest a supplement that is one that has been researched, is safe, and will increase something, our true measure of the omega index. The omega index is a measure of how many omega-3 fats are found in your red blood cells. And with these plant-based omegas, we see an increase in the numbers based on control without having to take an overdose of. Most doctors are giving overdoses of EPA and DHA. And I don't want to get too technical with you, other than to say EPA and DHA are what we call downstream, biochemically downstream molecules. What we want is the original precursor to those, so the body can self-regulate how much omega and which kind of longer chain omega fats it's making. So we want the original plant sources of omegas. And a lot of food, unfortunately, is politics. And so there's been a lot of push for, fish omegas, which I can't tell you really messes up your biochemical pathways. And I talked about the prostate cancer. I want to give you some good news. Pomegranates and its components are an alternative treatment for prostate cancer. There's been research to show that the omega-5 oils from pomegranate, which are found in this plant-based omega supplement that I was talking about earlier, as well as the pulp, which has the polyphenols from the pomegranate. And by the way, polyphenols are the number one anti-aging nutrients. And there's a berry blend from the same company that has also been clinically researched to show that it is rich in polyphenols. Not only that, they get into your blood, and then the bacteria actually eat it and turn it into even more polyphenols, which is a really beautiful way to slow down the aging process in your body. And so these plant sources, if you're going to take supplements, I believe in taking whole food supplements. I believe in taking clinically validated supplements, not just something you pick up at Costco or at your grocery store. And I also believe in something that has been clinically proven to, in all kinds of different parts of the body, to be bioavailable, to actually get into the body and effective. Okay, so let me ask this question, and you can put this in the chat as you're seeing this. Now, don't go blaming your moms for this, but these are the factors that have lowered your microbial diversity. Do you know if you were born through C-section? Do you know if you were breastfed or formula fed? Did you take antibiotics? Especially many of us are in our early years of life, we're given antibiotics at free will. Eaten gluten from wheat, rye, and barley on a regular basis, not played outdoors enough, obsessed with a clean environment, which everyone is these days, eaten sugary foods and artificial sweeteners, and eating meat, fish, poultry, cheese, dairy, and foods regularly. So when people try to change their diet, half the time or more, they fail. The reason they fail is because we actually have two brains. We have the brain in our head, but we have a much bigger brain. So after this talk, you may say, I really should go have a salad. But your enteric brain, the parasites that you've been feeding, are going to say, what does that young, if you saw me, you'd see that I'm a very short Indian woman. You'd say, what does that short Indian woman really know? She doesn't know you. She doesn't know that you really want a cheeseburger or whatever your favorite indulgence is, right? Because you've been feeding that brain for a long time. So I want you to understand that when we start to make changes, the first 3 days are the hardest days. You've got to my strategy is to starve out the parasites, starve them out. Don't feed them for 3 days. That will help you make changes. So if you can just get through 3 days, maybe you start on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe you want to do it in the middle of the week, figure it out. But you can start to make huge changes in your diet. So I'm going to explain the gut ecosystem as like a lawn. Like, let's say you have a flourishing gut ecosystem that looks like a beautiful plush lawn. Then maybe there was some devastation by antibiotics at some point, and left alone, what has grown back are weeds. So how can we change it? Well, there's a lot of talk about taking probiotics. The thing about probiotics is they're not the bacteria that you need in your gut. They're just certain bacteria that we can, put into a capsule form, and they may or may not help at times, but they're not going to make a huge impact in the long run. They're helpful, but they're not the ultimate answer. Then you can replace bacteria. These are the fecal implants I was talking about earlier, maybe not quite available to humans yet. Or you can start to feed the good bacteria. They're not dead completely. They're in the air all the time anyway. So you're always gulping them in. You just have to feed them. They can start to multiply really quickly. 3 days. In 3 days, you can feed them, and they have sex really fast. They multiply really fast, and you can start to populate yourself with good bacteria in no time at all. But it does mean getting to a lot of plants really quickly. So I want to just, as Rusty kind of alluded, we all have a story as speakers on this series. My story starts in Kolkata, India, which you may think of as a third world country, especially when I was born. But the reality is that because I ate primarily a plant-based diet, my body was in homeostasis. My microbiome was in symbiosis with my body. And it wasn't until I moved, even when we moved to the United States, I was fine until I went to Cornell and then Stanford. And, that first day at Cornell at the all-you-can-eat buffet, that was the beginning of the end of my good microbiota. And as I became totally married to my science, I didn't even know all this stuff, first of all. Even though I was walking the halls with Nobel laureates at Stanford, I did not understand dysbiosis. Now, what I can tell you is that if you asked me if I'm doing well, I would have said, yeah, I'm fine. We just kind of put up with so much. But back in 1994, I started to read about phytochemicals. That's when the word phytochemicals was introduced to us, plant chemicals. Turns out there's all these nutrients that are in plants that really serve to control our genetic, they're the epigenetic factors. So we have, maybe 20, 25,000 genes, but we have millions of epigenetic light switches that turn on and regulate different parts of our genetic material. And phytochemicals are those switches for our genetic material. And this has a huge effect on how we age. So what else can we feed the microbiome? Okay, so again, we talked about feeding the good bacteria. Eric Alm, who did this research, was, researchers are crazy. Imagine for a whole year, Eric and his colleagues in his lab, his postdocs in his lab, basically monitored over 300 different lifestyle factors and foods that they were eating and testing their poop every day to see what changed. And only one thing had a great effect on the diversity of the microbiota. If today they had 10 grams more fiber, then tomorrow there was an 11% increase in the diversity of their microbiota. Why is this so important? Well, after we did the whole Human Genome Project, we had such high hopes before the Human Genome Project. We thought we would figure out all the diseases and just, figure out genetic solutions. Turns out that's not what happened. Then we started to do the Microbiome Project, which is to look at the genetic material of your bacteria. And what we see here is the orange dots are the US population compared to nomads that still roam about in South America and Africa. And they have much more diversity than we do. It's striking. They're in their own world and they do not get the diseases that we get. And they eat by just roaming around, picking plants. They eat 100 grams of fiber a day. Most people think of like hunter-gatherers. Hunting was rare. Gathering was prevalent. It still is prevalent. We gather food. We mostly need to eat plants. If you are starving, go ahead and eat an animal. But the good guys in your gut, they are plant-based eaters. That is something you got to understand. So remember, you're feeding the right bacteria, and that's the right approach because the US microbiome is like a devastated forest. And the rich tropical forest on the right is sort of a representation of the microbiota for those nomads in South America and Africa. And we can get there if we start to eat more plants in our diet. So fiber and resistant starches as well, fermented by bacteria, produce small chain fatty acids, which have a lot of great function in the body, including another brain connection. It acts on the hypothalamus to suppress your appetite. Fiber also holds water, space, and triggers volume sensors. So fiber is also a great way to not overeat. I have also written a book called Do You Have the Guts to Be Beautiful? It's available on Amazon. And based on this book, I started to run retreats. And for 5 years, I ran retreats and people would come to me and I'd create these amazing results. but then they'd go home and they would kind of, have a challenging time with willpower if I wasn't preparing all their meals. So I started to study willpower. Like, what is willpower? Turns out your willpower is based on how much sugar you're getting into a meal and how fast it's going into your bloodstream. So if we look at your blood glucose level, let's say you go to Starbucks in the morning and you get a, I don't know, mocha breve frappuccino, whatever, with like 100 grams of sugar in it, you're going to get a big sugar spike. Or maybe you're just having a bunch of toast or cereal in the morning, you're going to get a sugar spike because there's not enough real fiber in those things. And then 2 hours later, you're going to have a sugar crash. That's the curve. That's the light blue curve. The dark blue curve is if you were to start your day instead with a green smoothie of kale and other, fruits and things in it. Then you're going to be in the zone of willpower. We do want a little bit of sugar because your brain is a sugar hog and your muscles and your brain need sugar to function. And when people talk about a low carb diet, first of all, the word carb is a shorthand for processed carbohydrates. So people put fruits and vegetables, unfortunately, in the same category as pasta and bread and crackers and even worse, candies and like donuts and all that stuff. And there's a world of difference between processed carbohydrates and whole food carbohydrates. You need whole food carbohydrates. Your brain needs whole food carbohydrates. And when you eat carbohydrates that have fiber in them, it slows down the entry of the sugar into your bloodstream, which gives you willpower. So you have long, sustainable energy. And that's really important to understand. So at one of these retreats, one of my friends, Kim, came, and she showed up a year later, and she was able to maintain the weight loss that happened during her time with us at the retreat. So I asked her, what did you do? And she told me about some shakes that I had recommended to her and how she started to do that to manage her blood sugar for 2 out of the 3 meals. And so out of her experience, because, I could only help so many people at a time running retreats. So I wanted to come up with a program that people could follow at home and follow for life and have it be sustainable. And that had me create something called the Shred 10 program. It is a bit of a challenge, but if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. But it has some very clear guidelines, and I have a whole program that is available to you if you're interested. There's a book, there's recipe books, there's a guide, and I can get that information to you. But one of the things it helps you do is it's an easy way to get more than 50 plants into your diet every single day. I also am a big proponent of getting these aeroponic tower gardens. So you start to grow food. Anybody can have a green thumb. If you garden already, great. If you are shy about gardening, I want to let you know that technology today can help anybody and everybody have a green thumb. And so basically we can get there from here. We can get that sexy bacteria in our gut. You can get your sexy back. There's many reasons people choose to go plant-based. Here's Lisa Edelson posing for PETA, which is People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. It's also better for our greenhouse gases to go plant-based. Environmentally speaking, it's better for the planet, it's better for the animals, and it's better for you. And even if you're not as sexy as Lisa, maybe you might be excited by somebody else who has been speaking about this for a long time. Richard Simmons this is actually him on the cover of Life magazine, for those of us that remember Life magazine. So I want to leave you with that, what I hope for you is that you find peace, love, and understanding between you and your gut microbiota. And I just, now that my kids are grown, I am really, into like Mitra Raid 2.0, and I'm revamping my website. I'm going to start doing a lot more talks and broadcasting my talks on many different platforms like Clubhouse and podcasts. If you want to find out more about that, you can basically sign up on drmitra.com, and that website will be updating. We're in the midst of updating that website, so I can send you information about the Brain Bundle supplementation and Shred 10 lifestyle program, and there's much more coming. So if you want to know more, I encourage you to go there and sign up. And thank you so much for your patience, for being with us today. And I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, perfect. Great.
So Mitra, thank you so much. I just wanted to jump in and say, please, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We would love to be able to answer your questions. And there is one, Mitra, which I'd like to pose to you. And it's just, there was a specific question about the keto diet, but I'd love to hear your comments on, there's a lot of fad diets that we hear about in the news all the time and social media. We hear they're very popular among people. So I'd love to hear your comments generally about fad diets or diets that we hear about in the news, and also specifically about keto. And for everyone else, while she's answering, if you have other questions, please put them in the chat.
Yeah, well, the word keto means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I don't want to even make a blanket statement about keto diet. If keto diet means eating a bunch of bacon, then of course I would say, yeah, that's a really fad diet. But there are people who are trying to do a more plant-based version of a keto diet. So if you're thinking about keto diet as a way to more manage your blood sugar by eating less pasta and bread and processed carbohydrates and eating more vegetables and whatnot, then absolutely. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those people are also eating tons of eggs, and eggs are not good for you. There are no animal products that actually serve any good they have no nutrients that our body actually needs. So I think of it like an indulgence. Like if you want to eat eggs because you love eggs, it's kind of like if you're going to have a glass of wine, you're pretty clear that you're not drinking that wine for your health. Some people want to believe it's for the, antioxidants in that red wine. But let's face it, if you really want the antioxidants, eat the berries. It's the same with meat and fish. If you have those indulgences, just see them as indulgences, but don't think of a keto diet where you're trying to regulate your blood sugar by eating eggs as a healthy alternative. You can get there through plants. If you're thinking about keto from the standpoint of managing your blood sugar, then the way to go is to eat more fiber and plant fats. Now, plant fats, you can only eat so much. After a while, you start to just rack up the calories. So you're going to kind of go against yourself. So I don't think, and the other thing I don't like about keto diet is that I don't like anything that requires a lot of measuring. You shouldn't have to measure your food. That just sounds like a lot of work. And that's why I created the Shred 10 program. If you do the Shred 10 program correctly, you're going to get the same kind of results you're trying to get through the keto diet, but you're just going to get there in a healthier fashion. Having said that, there's a lot of food is politics, and somebody's always trying to sell you something. I'll come right out and say, I do believe I actually promote products that have been clinically researched, that I myself have used, given to my family and consumed for many, many years. I know is safe, and I have no qualms about it. And I've checked out the back end, how it's manufactured, all of that kind of stuff before I make a recommendation. That is not true for most of what people are buying on the internet. And there's regularly media to confuse people. So if you look at the medical journals will tell you the keto diet has been disproven over and over again. And whereas the plant-based whole food diet, rich in fiber, has been proven over and over again to be helpful. However, if you just look at Dr. Google and you're not reading research papers, then you're going to find a lot of opinions that sound like they know what they're talking about. But there are no clinical studies, I know, that support the traditional keto diet with a bunch of animal products high in fat. So I hope not to offend people who are trying to do things right. I hope you understand, if you're trying to regulate your blood sugar through plant fats and fiber, I'm okay with that. But if you're trying to do it through bacon and eggs, I'm not okay with that.
Thanks. And Mitra, we have another question here about supplements. You mentioned one that you recommend, and also there's a question about generically about supplements, whether that's vitamins, the kind of stuff you would buy at the grocery store, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do not believe in vitamins. First of all, I can't keep them down. So I don't believe in something I can't keep down. And again, when you take a vitamin, you're taking an isolated nutrient, and the body chemistry is a lot more complex. I believe in food. I was recommending the Juice Plus line because it is actually whole food, and I think they have now over 42 clinical studies, and I've used the products myself for 27 years, and it was my prenatal, and it really helped me with a lot of health challenges, and I have helped tens of thousands of people over the last 26 years get results with those products. And they also came out with that beautiful omega. When they first started talking about coming up with an omega supplement, I was not excited. But when they came out with it, they took a good 5 years to develop the product and then did the research. I became a convert myself. And when I started taking it, it really helped me with, like, I had surgery in my knee, and I noticed my surgery knee was a little bit inflamed in the morning. And when I started taking those omegas, that went away. And I wear these Blu-ray glasses now when I'm staring at the screen, but I used to have readers, and that has gone away since I started taking those omegas as well. I do take a double dose of them because of the research that I showed you. So I do recommend those. And other than that, I also recommend vitamin D3 because it's not a vitamin, it's actually a hormone, and most of us are not getting enough sunshine. So definitely make sure you get some vitamin D3 in your diet. You can, again, send me, a form. You can contact me, and I can get you a discount through Thorne, because that's a good company that I recommend for vitamin D3. So vitamin D3, and then the Juice Plus products give you everything. So it would replace all your vitamins and then some anyway. And it's clinically tested, very much so. That's pretty much what I recommend. Now, if you have some specific concerns, that may be addressed through a medical doctor and whatnot. But I find that a lot of people are even able to get off medications and whatnot once they do this program that I recommend, where we combine some of these products with lifestyle changes, such as giving up gluten, giving up dairy for sure, hopefully reducing your animal product intake as much as possible. But definitely dairy products are the worst animal products. And then some other lifestyle changes like not eating late, kind of my own version of, before intermittent fasting became a thing. I really believe in, there is a lot of data talking about how you want to eat based on your circadian rhythm. So these are all the things that are incorporated into the Shred 10 program. Yeah.
So thanks. We have one final question I think we have time for, which is side effects. Are there any side effects that to talk about? And there were specific questions about gas, bloating, and vitiligo, if I'm saying that right.
Side effects. Well, first of all, when you start to change your diet, yes, you start what's called die off, where the bad bacteria die off and the parasites. So initially there can be a little bit of gas and bloating, and you can take some charcoal supplements and ginger to help with those kinds of things. We have support groups and whatnot to help people out as they're making these changes, as well as part of the Shred 10 program. But the important thing to understand is they're temporary, and eventually things will even out. And what's on the other side of that? What's on the other side of changes? Of course, you want to see changes in your motility and all of that. But what's on the other side of that is basically a much healthier gut. It does take a while. What people do is they stop and stall. So they never quite get to the other side of dysbiosis. And so we're, I'm very interested in helping people get on the other side of dysbiosis through the Shred 10 program. Yes, and somebody's writing cumin, coriander, fennel tea. All these spices are awesome. They're also rich in phytonutrients, especially the polyphenols. Being Indian, I'm also a big proponent of spices in your food. And if you are going to eat meat or fish, you better lather that with all kinds of those kinds of spices, because they also act as anti-parasitic and antiviral, antifungal, all that kind of stuff. All those properties are in those spices as well.
Well, thank you so much. We are at the hour. This has been super informative talk. Dr. Mitra Ray, thank you for being with us. And as you all heard, you can go to her website. You can sign up for more information there. And sounds like you have some great programs available now and more in the works.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.